and this is one thing I want to say to the audience, just because you're eco-conscious does not mean that you're practicing sustainability.
Hmm.
Because an abundance of eco things that you're doing them to a certain gluttonous way
Okay.
still creates waste.
Yep.
This episode of Grounded in Maine is sponsored by ESG Review. ESG Review magazine is published quarterly in February, May, August, and November and is available for free in print and digital formats. ESG Review is devoted to environmental, social, and governance strategies, technologies, and investments. ESGreview.net is updated every Wednesday with 8 new stories and is home to feature articles, news items, and more. Visit esgreview.net to stay informed and help us spark the collaboration and awareness needed to develop sustainable economies and communities around the world.
There's a place where there's no trouble, no more pain, no more struggle.
Grounded in Maine podcast is an open conversation about how we show up for the world. I started this podcast out of a desire to learn new ways to be sustainable because the word sustainability is big. It can be overwhelming, and I just wanted to learn, different ways to try to be part of the solution and not feel like it's too late. So I'm talking to people who are doing different things and learning so much. I hope you are too. Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan, and my guest today is J.R. Sparrow. If you are in the podcasting world, you may know J.R. If you are anywhere on the Eastern Seaboard, you might also know J.R. because he's all over the place. But J.R. has not one, but 3 podcasts, and he is a friend of mine, and he and I have been chatting, and in the sustainability world, he kind of makes me look like I don't know anything. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. He's a scientist, he says, but he's super smart. Anyway, JR, thank you so much for hanging out today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been a pleasure. It's nice when you're a fan of something and you actually get to go on the show, like to talk, even though you don't have anything to talk about that's sustainable, but people think that you at least think that I know things about sustainability.
You know. You know. So JR is actually from Virginia, and so he's been telling me a lot of stuff that I should be looking out for or looking out, like be wary of. But he lives all over the place. He's all over the place. Anyway, but JR, so I mean, we were having these conversations about the land here, and I mean, we talk sustainability all the time because you're a fan, and I don't get to do that very often. But so you're in West Virginia mostly?
Yes, West Virginia. I became a transplant from Virginia to West Virginia between the year of '06. I came to West Virginia in '06, leaving behind Central Virginia, which where you live, you're part of a weird persuasion of Virginia because Virginia is broken up into multiple regions. The Piedmont region is actually where you are. Um, the other region, whatever the mountainous stuff is that's near me, I forgot what that's called. The other region is the something something, the Tidewater, and that's 757. But people from Virginia, based on your area code, some people are 804. I'm from Central Virginia, which is 434. But the connector to me is 276. 276 is your area code, but we have a parallel that runs between a city called Danville. There's a highway called 29, and you're familiar with US 29. That's the highway that runs actually through Danville. If you're not familiar with it, you know it now. I helped in the great, beautiful city of Seven Hills, which is Lynchburg, Virginia. My first idea or persuasion into anything started as a kid, digging in the dirt. When I was digging in the dirt, there were some things that you noticed. Coloration. You found out about this thing called clay, red mud, as most people call it. Nothing thrives in that. It's a runoff. it's something that, we just know about. So that was one area that we learned about, and we learned how to grow things around it, but not in it, or just don't bother with it because it's on a slide. So, knowing the region of Virginia, and knowing how many different land formations that are in the state of Virginia, kind of makes you a scientist, I guess. That's something you learn like at 3 years old. They tell you, hey, you can go to wetlands, you can live in the mountains, or like where I'm from, which are the valleys. You can learn about those places, and you learn about all kinds of things. And we have the greatest and most amazing thing that can help a youngster, which is 4-H camp.
Ah, okay. And so what did you, I know 4-H covers a lot of bases. Did you do like all, I did not do 4-H when I was young.
Soil conservation was actually my major thing. We would go to creeks, different forms of bodies of water to see things, and we learn about sandstone, the different types of rocks. Because we've got caverns and different things like that. So you learned about igneous rocks, blah blah blah. It was so many different things that we learned under a science model at 4-H camp, and they made it fun, obviously, with the singing and different things we did. That's what really sparked my interest in things like that. And then I would say somewhere between we would go to a pretty city called Martinsville. In Martinsville, there was a race that was there. It was a Martinsville 500, which is a NASCAR race. And to get free tickets into this event, we would clean up the event after. Like, this is like a 3 or 4 day event. Like, they had different things going on. We would clean up that event, and then cleaning up that event, that's when I first see my first bit of activism. People, saying, hey, these admissions, this, and that, these things aren't proper. There were protests. People were saying, hey, we don't need to keep doing certain barbaric acts. They weren't taking away from the racing, but they were taking away from the exhaust, the different things that came into the environment. Let's not use styrofoam. Let's use paper. That's where we learned about. I think that was probably my first lesson in sustainability. And then when you got to paper, let's use recycled materials. Let's use things that can be renewable. That was my first stance. And in this cleanup, you learned a lot of stuff. And then with the ideology of Appalachia involved at these races, people sometimes weren't as conscious as they would be in the North about things, because people tend to add a bit of ignorance to the people in the South, which is not true. But when someone gives you a styrofoam cup or a paper cup, guess what you got? A paper cup. So by the middle of the 90s, people excuse the beverage that they were drinking. They're at a race. They're drinking beer, but they're drinking out of paper cups. They're drinking it out of things. And people, another thing at the races, you're seeing that there's different types of receptacles. There's recycling things that make sense that way. So that's where I started learning.
That's awesome.
Actually, at a race.
That's awesome. I mean, do they still honor that now? Do you think
Yes, they do.
Still like paper instead of styrofoam?
Yes.
Awesome.
And then sometimes you have the ever so often red Solo cup, but that's a tailgating thing. The things they do within the tailgate, and can't control that, but actually inside, and then moving on to certain materials that they can use. But overall, nice experience there, and it's nice that they're being conscious of our ecosystem.
For sure. Wow, that's really cool. I actually went to the racetrack when I first moved here.
Oh.
I mean, there was nothing happening. It was closed, but we're like, this is the racetrack. My uncle is big into racing, and it's on his TV 24/7 practically. So he wanted to see it.
Well, maybe he'll come down and visit you. And it's like I said, the experience of us cleaning it up to be able to go to the event, that taught us that, hey, there's a certain way you need to do things. And even with our cleanup, we had gloves and different things. We were separating certain materials and things and putting those in special colorized bags. And this is back in like 1994, 95 when we were doing this type of stuff. So
that's awesome. I love that. So this was you and friends?
Man, it was a gathering of a lot of people. I think it was a lot of racing enthusiasts too, because they just wanted free tickets. But I mean, you were there. Races are really weird. They have a qualifier. I mean, they do practice laps. They do a qualifier, and then they do the race like a few days later. And then the I mean, altogether there was like 4 different races, but these qualifying things started on Thursday and everything didn't end until Sunday. So we were there Thursday through Monday for a cleanup. So that was amazing, and we get to skip school.
Okay. And so you were there every day, cleaning up every day?
Yes.
So they give you free tickets to get in and then you clean up after? What if you skipped? Like,
So they had a system. They had a system. They knew who you were and they knew what you were doing. I mean, it was distinguishable by the volunteer shirts that we wore.
right.
You know, you had some commemorative of a shirt, you know, to the event, and people kind of knew who you were. And like, even at the race, like we would still get things because people would throw things away, but you know, if a receptacle gets too full, things spill out. So even as a kid, you're learning to take care of this waste management, basically.
Right. And I wonder if it's because the racetrack makes a lot of money that they could afford to do that type of stuff, like the recycling and whatever, because they don't do a lot of recycling in town.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's a COVID thing that it just happened after that. But I have work to do.
Yes, you have to get Southwestern Virginia in shape.
And so you're saying that the clay soil is not good for growing.
No, it is not. It's one thing that has an erosion factor that you cannot. I mean, some people have learned how to manage it, obviously, but in Virginia, it's something that is a waste for your property. If you have any red clay on your property, they can go as far as they can with it, but it would take at least 3 or 4 of our lifetimes, or maybe even 7, to get that erosion out of the way. And usually with a red clay, depending on where it is, just there's no way for anything to sustain life there. So, and I know you've seen red clay around different places, have you not?
Oh, I have it in my yard.
Oh, you do? Is there any hard growth into it, or is it just limited growth?
Very limited, if anything.
Right. And usually some people find some way to handle it, and some people just let it be because it's part of nature.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking away from an ecosystem. And I don't know every single bit of its significant value in the area, but I treat it just like it's a predator. It's doing something to help the ground, but at the same time, it's taken away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna plan to build some raised beds to put on because I have to have something. Uh, I don't like I mean, I have no problem with the red soil, but that's not what I want in my front yard.
Right, right. Horrible to sow grass or do anything like that. And then that brings up the factor of the elusive sod farms and how they, you know, it's weird. Like I told you when, you know, we talked about sod a little bit. It's crazy how people will actually patch that over their property. It may not even sit in the ground and it may die over time, but it's kind of like having fake hair. And it takes up in certain places and it's able to sustain a growth once those roots go outward. So some people can put a piece of sod down, cut the clay part out, put another piece on, and eventually get it to connect, or however they get it maintenance or whether it's an odd thing.
So wild. My goodness. I I always learn something new with you. That's really interesting. I wish you had told me about the red soil before I planted things in it. I wish I had told you that I was doing that before I did it. Because I am pretty sure it killed my hibiscus and
Oh,
um maybe my big tree. Yeah.
well, that's the whole deal. I guess being at school, soil conservation was like one of the first easy things that you could do. And you know, it was fun to do as a kid. You know, a 6 or 7 year old digging in the dirt and learning about these and putting them in pills and or something to document the dirt. You know, because how do you really hurt dirt? So you know, learning about that stuff. And I'm talking about we would put it in like small little containers, and then we would sift it and different things
Mhm.
like that, so that we learned properties and things like that. And the greatest thing was seeing clay go into water, of you know, free flowing water. When you watch what happens with it, it looks like it dissolves, and then all that sediment eventually gets to the bottom.
Mm.
So if you had a cup, such as this one, and imagine it being clear, you watch it at the top, then you watch over time those particles eventually make it to the
Thanks,
bottom.
down. Hmm. Dang it.
Yeah, and
I mean, I was digging there because it was not grassy and not thinking about why there's no grass.
right. I mean, it's a thing like, if you know, because up north, y'all have very small amounts of clay in different areas, but it's not something that's really prevalent. You know, basically once you get past Maryland, everything's a different ecosystem compared to here. Because like I said, Maryland, West Virginia, we'll call it the Mason-Dixon line, basically. After you get past the Mason-Dixon line, that's where it changes. You know, everything changes. Because I know you probably noticed that when you go down, you start seeing certain land formation trees and different things like that. And then you get to certain parts of Virginia, our pines are different. They're either slimmer or different things like that. Even in my travels across Florida over the last bit in Georgia, I've noticed like their pine trees aren't as rich and their trees aren't as full as our trees. I mean, they have trees that are decent size, but where we are and where you are, the trees grow.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny that you think that I noticed stuff. I don't notice stuff. And when I was driving, it was the middle of the night, so I did not see. I saw nothing. It was dark, but I should have realized that before I planted those things. Darn it. I gotta redo that. But you were also telling me about like I think I asked you about the spider holes or the snake holes, and you were like, well, you know about, I don't even remember what you were telling me about the snakes and the snakes here. They're poisonous snakes.
Yeah, quite a few poisonous snakes. And I told you about like the corn snakes and the different things that go on there, and the story of the diamondback. I think that's what I probably told you about. I talked a lot about, you know, because you know the difference in the shape of head of what's poisonous and what's not. But we have black snakes that if you flip them over, they have the pattern of a diamondback underneath them, but their heads are not diamond shaped. And I talked to you quite a bit about water snakes. And when people use the terminology water snake, let me say it exactly how I mean. Water moccasins, poisonous snake. And I told you, I think the silliest thing I told you is like we used to take a piece of particle board. If anybody knows what that is, if you don't know, it's basically just a compact piece of the press board. Heat it up under water, like let it get in the water or whatever, put a hole in it, tie it somewhere, and the snakes will all gather underneath that, and you can catch those snakes, get those snakes out of your ecosystem, which I understand. I'm not a person that just tears up ecosystems because I don't want to, but they are a nuisance. And then I think I talked to you about like the gardener snakes and different things like that, like the snakes that are not harmful, but they're the ones that like a gardener snake will bite you, but you won't get, you know, anything from it. But the thing is, it bites, continuously tries to bite you. And you know, sometimes it just goes about its business, but it's a thing that keeps away certain types of rodents, so it gets to live. If it's a little baby gardener snake going through my garden or somewhere like that, it's fine. It's just living its life, so I gotta let it pass by. But a black snake is something that I will do a double take on. Anything that's like 6 feet long, that's when certain types of decisions have to be made about it.
Doesn't have to be 6 feet long for me to avoid. I'm good. I'm not questioning. If I see a snake, I'm just gonna not hang out.
I understand that. Well, me, I'm gonna walk up and just tap it on its head and pick it up. If I have a boot on, if I don't have a solid like steel toe boot, I'm not messing with it. I'll let it go unless I know what type of snake. If I know that it's a gardener snake, I'll go pick it up just for, you know, for giggles and stuff like that, so people can see that it's not harmless. But I will show that it's intent. You'll see that it's snap and trying to get me. Then I just tap on the head and reconfigure it and let it go.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I don't know if that's brave or if that's silly. I mean, you have a lot more experience with them than I do. That's right. You go ahead, do that. You do what you need to do. I don't need to do that.
You got to understand, like, so you take 4-H and then you take another part of the ecosystem. I come from Boy Scouts, and then my sisters, they went to Girl Scouts. So I went to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, because, you know, when you're a family, you go to everything. So I learned from all of these different groups, different things, because they teach you the wilderness when you're in Virginia, at least in the Piedmont region. You learn it because you have to go to Blue Ridge Parkway. You got to go here and there. You're going in the woods where I'm from. It's not, even if I'm in West Virginia, I never grew up in an area where we just sat in the city for any reason. People sat outside and read books and did all the eclectic things that everybody else does, but you were outside. inside was a factor of when it got too cold or when it was nighttime or when we have to settle down. Yeah.
You're outside until it's like you can't really be outside.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. So, okay. So what else did you learn in your 4-H thing? Because I did not do it. I also did not do scouts.
So through the 4-Hing, this is something that was crazy. Like we learned, they taught us patterns of cooperation with people, and this is something that's interesting on the show. So because I have a certain knowledge or expertise inside of that soil conservation, there will be people that will be able to tell me the difference in the pine needles and like the different direction. Some animal people will be able to trail stuff. Like you learn the wilderness to a certain degree, and we learn like say like the flow of water in that soil. Like if the water was very high at some point, you could tell that by the deviation in the soil, how there was displacement. If the water flowed very fast, because we could get stones and pebbles out of the low-lying water, and you can feel how smooth they are, or if they really still have a tough texture to them. You learn a lot of things that made you cautious. For example, knowing that that's a bear print, or knowing that this is a deer track. This deer track is pretty big, so it may be a buck or this and that. Not for the sense of hunting, but knowing how the flow of the environment's going. Things are migrating from a certain area. So then that brought us to the attention that, hey, they're timbering a certain area and they're killing an ecosystem.
Right.
Which they do reforest later, but timber rights, pine needles, and everything that they're doing there, that it's letting me know that something's happened to bring these animals to this area. This is not the natural habitat for certain things. So you see that much knowledge that I just said right there. You can see that it kind of made me into some, not a zoologist. What would you call that person? A 4-H counselor, basically. They primed you to have um, a an awareness that I can't explain beyond the detail that I'm giving you. It's something that always sticks with you.
I mean, that makes sense. It totally makes sense. I mean, we talked about that in Maine as well. Like, the cities are seeing more fox and raccoons and coyotes walking down the road, but that's because they're building up the areas so much that they're pushing them out of their natural habitat.
Yes. And that's something that you look at, and you look at, for instance, like we'll go to West Virginia, but this is a Virginia problem too. When they introduce new animals to the ecosystem, one animal in particular is an elk. An elk is a Midwestern thing. The introduction of elk in certain areas and even caribou, not in the sense of hunting, but just them being in the ecosystem and the terror that they bring because they're able to sustain life. But when they sustain life, something else is not sustaining.
Right.
So that's one thing that you're aware of. And just you learn a lot more about vegetation from 4-H. And obviously not everybody knows the difference between poison oak, poison sumac, and all that other stuff. Well, we learn those patterns. We learn what it is. So when you touch something or you get a rash or something happens, oh, poison sumac, poison oak, stay away from that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know the difference between those.
Oh, if you wander into the woods, only go a meter or two in the woods. You don't know. In the early spring, in the middle of the summer in Virginia, learn the patterns of at least of the sumac and the oak, because it will save you a lot of time and a lot of irritation and calamine lotion. So.
Got it. Yeah, I don't hang out in the woods though. That's not really my bag, but I will do some research this winter. I'll be ready. I feel like there was something else that I needed to ask you about, but I'm just curious. So this is just a kid, like everyone did this, the 4-H to learn
you had the choice to do it because it was a summer activity. But you have to understand, like, our earth sciences and stuff like that. Earth science was something that was taught in the 5th or 6th grade, and it was something you did for a whole year. And then when you went to block periods and it was semesters and stuff, you had emphasis in different areas in science. So our science, that was something like our science class. I don't know about everywhere else. I'm not talking about dissecting frogs and stuff. But we went outside. You had to learn things. And then as a kid growing up, fourth through sixth or seventh grade, they made 4-H camp interesting to people that wanted to have this type of knowledge. And it was something that you would bring back to your friends because some of this stuff was cool, and then the stuff that wasn't cool, obviously we didn't bring back to them. We just kept it inside our thinking caps, as they would say, and kept going on with life. But it came in handy later on. So
Yeah. And so I want to go back to the racetrack thing because I'm so interested that you got to do some cleanup, but you also learned about, you said you learned about activism there, and you learned about recycling there, or no?
yes, learn about recycling. This is what happened in these instances. Like the people that were there in activism, it was peaceful protest, but the protest was like this: if someone threw a piece of trash away, they gave reason to why it shouldn't go in there and the things that can happen. Now, mind you, the belligerency of the people that have had too much alcohol, they may not reach them.
Right.
And if they did reach them, it's something that came back from the background into the foreground and all around their head. It came back, but they made it a point to peacefully say, "Hey, you can do this way. You can save this and that." It wasn't like out here being chained to a tree and saying, "Don't cut the tree down." Nothing like that. But simple education without being very pushy. Sort of like how sometimes in religion, not to tie religion to anything, but how sometimes people profess their faith, but they profess their faith with a shield and a dagger. In this instance, or a sword. This was not that. This was like, hey, you can do this, this, and that. And then, what I do remember at least twice was that someone would be confused or they'd be inebriated, and they would hand over that item after they were finished. They had enough initiative to know that, hey, there's a different way to do it. So,
right.
And that right there, to me, was the greatest tool because that was a person using their free will and thought. I never care about the person that actually put the item in the recycling bin, but the person that didn't have enough persuasion but had enough intuition to know that, hey, this is not right. Let me pass it along to JR. Let me pass it along to Amy. And they're helping me. So that's that collaboration and that cooperation that I talked about earlier that took place.
I love that. Gosh, that's super cool. But so is that something that, does the racetrack always do that? Like people can get in for free if they help to clean out?
Now I do not know what the preparations for are to get involved in that, but at that time I know that it was lasting, and this is sad. I know that it was still going on up until 2004. Sadly, with me, the ventures that I've taken on in life with my jobs, I have become, they call me, my nickname is Visa. I travel so much that I'm, here, there, and everywhere, but nowhere long. So I don't really have the time. I mean, I'm still conservative. I told you about my bamboo stuff. So I'm still conservative in those areas there, and I try to look for ways to make things last. Even with this cup, recycle. I make sure, and we have a symbol for things that are recyclable. So that's something there that we were taught at 4-H. We were taught about recycling. That's a major thing. You're taught what can be used and different things like that, and then you're taught certain metal properties also. Metal is something that is a taboo when people are talking about sustainability, because people don't listen into the oxidation process and different things that go on with metal and all that other stuff. So that's a whole other topic for a whole other day.
Right. I mean, there's certain kinds of metal. It's not even the metal so much as the like, they do like a lining, right? Like cat food and stuff. They have that like white inside, and that's probably not awesome. But I mean, metal itself is infinitely recyclable because you can just melt it and then reshape it. But if you put some finishing, is that the word I want? Like a finish, sure. Then it complicates it a little bit, but still better than other things.
Right, and it's one of the great things that are part of the grand design, like metal. But some people, like I said, it's a miseducation, and miseducation is the fault of all of society. So that's where we have to work on that. But like I said, that's another topic for another year.
Right.
Anyway.
But I love that there's that sort of like almost bartering system that happened with that. You get to go in for free, but you get to, you won a lot. I mean, like you you had a lot of wins there because you got to see the race and you got to learn about activism and recycling and all that stuff. So you got a lot out of that. I wonder if a lot of people did, or if they were just like, yeah, whatever. Some people just take things on like that, and like, I don't remember anything. So, but there are some people that that might just not be into it. It's not for everybody. But I'm glad that you did. That's super cool. That's really awesome. I think that there should be more of that for sure. I mean, it was an education and fun.
And that's another thing. Like, I can't even say this, like, because we've all worked different jobs. Like later on in like when I would go clean civic centers, because for some reason I'm not the best person at cleaning, but I'm the best person at picking up things. That was even a thing. Like when I worked at the Roanoke Civic Center and doing different events and things like that. I did notice in the 2000s, because we'll basically say if I'm 39, my high school range was basically, we'll say 2000, 2004, then off to college. But in between, or the time after, and that stuff before I left Virginia, the little 2 years in between it, like I would pick up little odd jobs here and there, and there was always an emphasis everywhere. I noticed it mainly in, not because of my association with my former employer. I even noticed it. The first place I noticed it very heavily was Sam's Club. Sam's Club as a whole, when I went there, you saw the receptacles. They minimized how certain things were. They got rid of carpet. They got rid of things that didn't make sense. That store is nothing but metal and concrete to a certain degree. I mean, I understand all the other additives and things that they add in there to the store, but the stores went bare bone. They weren't very elaborate. They're like, hey, come in here and get this. This is just brick and mortar. Let's take some of the element out of certain things, and then becoming eco-conscious to a degree, which is not. And this is one thing I want to say to the audience: just because you're eco-conscious does not mean that you're practicing sustainability. Because an abundance of eco things that you're doing them to a certain gluttonous way,
okay,
still creates waste.
Yep.
It's the minimization or the minimalistic way of doing things without so many processes to it that achieve sustainability. And that's a misconception that so many people have, at least in my opinion. I don't know how you feel, but
yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think, well, if we're going to talk about Sam's Club, there's like, wait, Sam's Club. Are we talking about Walmart?
Yeah. Sam's Club is like the membership thing that you go to where you get everything in bulk.
Yeah. But like, Walmart, if they just sell so many things that are not sustainable at all. So they like promote that, and that's not awesome. That's not my favorite. And like even now, like I have in Maine, I think I shopped at Walmart like twice ever. And here I do that instead of Amazon because I can pick it up. But mostly they don't have things, so I order stuff and then they have to have it shipped, which makes me crazy.
So maybe Walmart was a bad example, but just that one idea, basically they throw, well, we can actually turn that around and make it a negative but a positive at the same time. They show you how to be sustainable. They have so much stuff in the store that's not. But to the average person, when you walk inside any of these facilities, you see that recycling stuff usually to the left of you. And you have a choice on how you put your trash in and how you decide to do things. So to give you your individuality there, once you're inside the store, they're the conformity monster. Do what we say, not what we say. If you have an alternative measure, you have a little bit, but you're still going to have to get it shipped like Amazon. So I get
that. I think, it's also so many places they want to look good, but they don't really practice like themselves. How do I want to say that? It's not, they don't really take it in. It's just like for show, basically. I've seen that a lot with some places, and that is unfortunate.
And that's true. Just do it for show, but we're not really a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, we say we recycle, but we only do when people are watching.
Kind of like when we were in high school. There were certain people that did certain things, but then when you see them behind closed doors, they didn't care about whatever they were activists about or anything.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Let me get the yearbook picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, uh oh man, yearbook. Oof. That just brought back some memories.
They do call me Mr. Nostalgia. That's one of my major nicknames. Funny story. I'll just say this about me real quick. When I was about 24, I had already started the middle of my traveling everywhere. So I got this weird nickname. Everybody knows I'm a professional wrestling fan. I love professional wrestling. There was a wrestler named Larry Sabisco, and his name was the Living Legend. And anybody knows a tale with the living legend is there's always these myths and things that are told about people. Some of them are true, some of them are not. But people always highlight this person as a person that takes moments, makes memories, and takes memories and makes outstanding displays of someone's life. So I was nicknamed the living legend, and it's something that's always followed with me. And I always make fun of that in podcasts, and I say I am a real living legend in podcasting because of different little things like that. But the key factor to sustainability or any presence that you want to have like that is there has to be one person like you, like me, that can walk up to something. And this is not the sustainability part. This is the psychology of it that I'm speaking about. And not everybody can see their heart, right? So there has to be a person that can show that person their heart or show them certain things that they could or should know about, because we're not going to say that they have to, because we're not forcing it.
Right.
No shield and no sword. But I'm a reminder to people of what their heart is. I do no maintenance, and then I disappear like a tumbleweed. So that's something that you do with the sustainability. You let people know, you show them their heart again. You show them that it has certain ways that blood goes in, goes out, which is certain processes to help in sustainability. And then you back away. You still stay with them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do the maintenance. You let them personally do the maintenance. And that's what your podcast is about to me, if no one's told you that. But that same philosophy, that's what I do in life.
I like that. Okay, so what does the word sustainability mean to you personally, though?
All right, sustainability. When we're actually talking about it, it starts off with the word attain. It's an attained knowledge, because it's not something you're just born with. I don't think someone just wakes up and, I know how to do everything in sustainability. It's attained knowledge that fortifies a healthy future. All right, so with that being technical, let me break down all the stuff inside of that.
I know you will.
So sustainability has one context, a form of conservation. All right, so we got conservation out the way. Preservation, because the material we're going to reuse or the thought pattern that we're using is going to be something that we're going to use again. So that's a part of being sustainable.
Sure.
And in sustainability, having the active thought of not thinking like a square. If I think in a circle always retains its property. It revolves and evolves. So a circle's like this. If I make another circle, it's small. Make it up. Well, I can't do all that gang symbol stuff, but you have a bunch of different circles that continuously go. Size may vary, whatever, but a circle retains what it is. A square does the same thing to a degree, but we've always used circles. Everybody says that's a revolving, evolving thing.
Sure.
So that's my terminology right there. Sustainability is revolving and evolving. So it's a form of evolution that continuously keeps going in your thought pattern on how to have preservation and conservation. Now you can make it better because you're the conservation. You're the sustainability person, but that's what I honestly feel that sustainability is. And then the end result of that, which comes out of all that, is a healthier environment. And when I say a healthier environment, I'm not talking about breathing quality. I'm talking about a standard of life that makes sense under those compounds of that. Hey, we're doing something not to harm the environment, because even though we do something good, there's harm somewhere with anything we do. But we're being more conscious of the hurt and the harm that we're putting in the world.
Right.
We're not unconsciously doing things. That's sustainability.
Yeah. So consciousness is sounds like it's a big part of that. I'm down with that. I love talking to you. I always learn something new. How could someone find you if they wanted to learn more about you? I mean, you have 3 different podcasts.
Yeah, 3 different podcasts, but the greatest thing you can do is you can head over to Instagram if that's your Facebook or wherever you go. You can go basically if you find my link tree, it will take you to everything on earth that's part of me, email address, all that other stuff. Or you can head over to www.wvuncommonplace.com, catch me there. All of my materials recycled everywhere. I'm on almost every single social media platform. I can't be every single place, but I try to reach everybody at their doorstep. That's a key thing that I've learned in any type of social media movement. I can meet you at your doorstep. I will engage at your doorstep, but I may not always be at your doorstep, but you know that I will be there at some point.
I'll get there. Yeah. So JR's podcasts are WV Uncommonplace, and then the
Yes.
other one that I was on is what?
Listen, it's West Virginia Uncommonplace Interviews and Sessions.
Interviews and Sessions.
And me and you both know just a quick thing about that is we're taught this thing about podcasting to curate, to niche down or whatever you use for the word niche, niche down. And I've always done a show that's a carnival. You're going to get a personal journal from me most of the time. Then you have interviews that make sense and that are gripping and stuff like that. And I would do those and then do the fun stuff on Saturdays. And I was never worried about analytics. I don't care about that, even if people think that. There was a drop off in listeners because I had that set of listeners that wanted that informative information. But then there were people that wanted the fun part. We wanted to be intimate with JR. We want to know how he ticks and thinks. So I took the regular show after 4 years, because I built my platform off that. 2 other shows branched off from that. And that's my bread and butter. So the interviews and sessions are easier. They're fun for me to do with people. There's no structure to it, but they're interviews and there's type of sessions. So if me and you decided one day to do, like, I don't know, talk about the 80s. If we
Oh, yeah.
If we weren't going to make a podcast, we were going to do like a series on it. Like we we're going to do a 4-episode track of that. I can go do that session, name it, make it a limited series inside my podcast or whatever you're doing. And interviews and sessions, that's a session portion right there. There's 4 episodes, 8, 10, 12 episodes that are dedicated to that. But with me being a scientist, I have a way to have it somewhere where it makes sense. So it's not all under one umbrella, and it's not like this whole cluster, whatever, that takes people away from it, because you want to hear exactly what you want to hear every week. You don't want to have to be dictated in the sense that on Saturdays, I got to choose to listen or not. I used to be the person that said, hey, you have to listen and hit them with the whip regardless. And then I learned, from Podfest and different things like that, that were better ways to do that. And then from those, the dark child of this whole thing is Sparrows Under review.
The dark
My co-host Stacy, big shout out to her, and things like that. That show came about because I was doing all these shows under West Virginia Uncommonplace, and during the pandemic, there was some kind of weird thing that went on, because even though people, this is odd, I do review shows, but I just don't like sit around and watch TV. If it's a movie or something, I sit down for movies, television series and stuff like that. I couldn't even tell you. Like, I've seen How I Met Your Mother, but I've never seen Big Bang Theory. Don't even know anything about it. That type of, like I said, it's a certain, disconnect there. So Sparrows Under Review has become the easiest show that I've done, not because of Stacy, but, banter between 2 people works out better than just one person. But because I know exactly what I'm reviewing. It's concrete. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We're gonna get 2 opinions and go from there. So Sparrows Under Review, that's a show that comes out Tuesday. Interviews and Sessions, it's going to eventually go to being just 4 shows a month, which is that's kind of how the podcasts go around. All 3 shows have a place for everyone, and then I have a secret 4th podcast.
What?
That you have to be in the multiverse or whatever it is. It's an archival show called West Virginia Uncommonplace Presents whatever. I forgot the name of it because I don't. I have someone else that runs it.
So exclusive. I don't even know the name.
Yeah, it's that secret. Like, I mean, you can find it on platforms, obviously, if you put WV Uncommonplace in. But it's an archival show, and ever so often, shows that are very populated, not downloads, don't care about that. Very populated by, like, people make comments, engage with it. Those shows end up on this archival show for the people that don't have time to listen to West Virginia Uncommonplace in its iteration right now, but they're fans of interviews and sessions, and they still want to know some of the fun stuff that's good. it's a lot to deal with. So that's how I do that. And to answer this one question before you even ask it, the way that I'm able to task for these shows and doing all this stuff is I am one of the people that batch shows, batching shows and then curation. If I had a Saturday and there was another podcaster, and this is no invitation to anybody, but this is just how I work and how I think. If we have topics and we know that it's not something we can sit there and talk about 6 hours and do 8 episodes, let's make 15-minute episodes. I know the magic number for my listener retention. It's right at 22 minutes. I can't do a show this long because when I do that, I got to break it up in 4 parts, and there's got to be that's a whole month's worth of episodes because they're not going to listen to me beyond 20 minutes. So you get a quick 10, 15-minute episode out of
You
me.
killed it.
Yeah. So
22 minutes is a half-hour episode.
right. So, since I got that on lockdown, that's how I know I can do 4 shows. So imagine if I'm talking about, I think the next thing I've got to get somebody to go with me when I'm about to do the Care Bear movies, right? For example, to say like I talk about them, I'll have someone as a special guest or something like that, which won't even be tied into Sparrows Under review. Just something I'm doing for fun, talking about, different things and talking about whatever I was eating at the time. Everybody used to eat frozen, the freezy pop things, break them up and eat them. So that's something that went along with me and Care Bears. I had the different flavors, the pink one, purple, green. So you see, what I do inside podcasting with people is you notice you got to smile because you went back in time and you thought about the younger you, the younger Amy, and what you were doing then. And that's the type of reaction and things that I look for inside of podcasting and in life.
Mm-hmm.
The reaction that puts a smile on your face and it takes you back to a time of innocence. Let's not worry about all the facilities that make us an adult. Let's go back in time, even if it's just for a brief moment, to remember the joy and the day that we had no agony. That's my goal in podcasting. That's my why.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to a time when we had joy and there was no agony. Because waking up every day and deciding to go into your fold, there's a bit of agony in that. Even though we want to be positive all the time.
We're constantly reminded of the fact that we're adults. Right.
And there's certain things that are intricate in our adult lives that weren't intricate when we were kids. We didn't, some people were far advanced when it came to relationships and things like that. But as a kid, I was not worried about anybody's situation except my friends. And if we were going to be friends the next week, that's the worst thing I had to worry about. Didn't have to worry about, this or that, and no pressure in life. And that's one thing I try to get people to remember that, you have 15 minutes every day. So take the pressure out your life for 15 minutes. Take that PSI down. Once you do that, you can have an amazing experience. Yes, you still have to deal with everything else. Because we have to have accountability and responsibility because we're programmed that way. But
it's like a deep breath.
Yeah, that time, and I make that time for myself, even when I'm mad or have a fit of anger. Just release to a certain degree. Don't release every aspect of it because if I did that, might not be here, But controlled chaos,
Controlled chaos. Okay, so I will put links for all this in the show notes, and your link tree as well. But and you don't remember the name of the fourth?
No, I don't.
West Virginia Uncommonplace something. Something that is not.
I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, I know people.
How long has it been since you've produced one of those?
Probably since like August or maybe July. It's not dead. It's not dormant, but I have to cover a lot of things and I do a lot of different things inside podcasting. So that show was just something that I did for people that needed a quick reference or wanted the best quality without having to go through 500 plus episodes or however many. Because the one thing is, like the deceased rapper Tupac, I produce a lot of content and it doesn't stop. Like, obviously right now I haven't been actively recording, but when I do Sparrows Under review, that's something that has to have a monthly basis for it. So that's what I do. The other shows, I did a fun episode. I did something about the ideal date because someone asked me, they're like, "You're the projector guy. You're this, and that." Like, what? Because I did the worst date. What is your ideal date? Like, what is something, and I'm a cheapskate. Even though I don't care anything about money or anything like that, I like to find the greatest way to capture moments, so.
I love that. I mean, and it was Labyrinth, so how can you not love that?
But listen, let me tell you how my persuasion is wild. If you listen to the episode, you notice I said Sarah's name. I said the Goblin King. But I could not remember any other character's name. I called someone ugly something something, but you knew what character I was talking about because the vividness or the characterization that went in my voice and how excited I got. He was like, yeah, that's that ugly character or whatever, or that random dog. I will find some way to tie in a bit of humor to bring you into it. And you're like, yeah, I remember that random dog with the white beard. What was his name? And then you go look it up and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to remember that. Since JR didn't, I'm not. Why waste the brain function?
Right. But that's what makes it fun though. That you
Right.
bring us back. So West Virginia Uncommonplace folks and Sparrows Under review and interviews and sessions. Is that what it
Yes.
is? Interviews and
Interview
sessions.
session.
I don't know why I can't remember that.
Well, look, everybody does this. They just say West Virginia Presents, and then they just leave it at that. You can find everything under that ecosystem.
They're all under West Virginia Prison and West Virginia Uncommonplace.
Yeah, WV Uncommonplace, and you're good to go for anything that has me. And my name is I got a good name. It's just JR Sparrow. Kind of like Cher. I need the Sparrow because I can't just do JR, but JR Sparrow. It sounds like I'm a licensed life insurance guy that's coming to your house to sell you something that you really don't want. JR Sparrow, the insurance agent.
When you say it like that and you hold up the little card,
Right.
that
You'll
totally
take my card, but you'll never call me. But you'll remember JR Sparrow if I need life insurance. So that's the kind of feeling I got to give. That's another part of the why that I do in podcasting. I'm going to leave a moment or a memory. That's all I can do. Then I have to disappear like a tumbleweed.
disappear like a tumbleweed.
Right. Call it commitment issues, call it what you want. But I've always said this. I'm a friend to people, right? And I'll expressly let you be a friend to me. I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to pull and tug on our friendship. But the lasting impression that you get is actually an imprint from me.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that gives people a stronger sense of belonging in a friendship.
All right. And with that, I will talk to you guys next week. I hope you have an awesome week, and check out JR wherever you are, because he is everywhere. I am not, but he is.
I just want to take a second to thank my guest again for speaking with me and sharing such great information. I love having these conversations with folks. I also want to thank Buzzsprout for hosting the podcast, for Jane Bolduck and her music genius, for Becca Coffron and her award-winning artwork. And thank you for listening. I appreciate that so much. Please check out the show notes for any links and extra information. And if you would like to follow my guest and find out more about them, I'm sure they would love the follow. And if you don't mind leaving a rating or review wherever you're listening, and just help to get this podcast in front of new eyes, that would be amazing. I would really love that. And feel free to reach out to me on the socials and let me know what you're thinking. And if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please let me know that. I would love to have a conversation with you about sustainability. All right. Thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
There'll come a day, my mama told me, when I find love to have and hold me, a heart that's strong and so sincere. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? Oh, tell me, how do I get there from here? 'Cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. forgiveness will heal the ache. With sweet forgiveness, wages of war will disappear. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? I wonder, how do I get there from here? Yeah, 'cause here now I'm so far down, and mercy's bound here to find me. When that state of grace has finally found me, will there be music, ooh, and good friends around me? Yeah, yeah. And I'll just smile through happy tears and wonder,